Hello and welcome to the Rask Network. What you're about to hear and see is limited to general financial information only. Please be sure to speak to your financial planner or refer to our financial services guide available at rask.com.au/FSG before acting on the information.
Welcome back to the Australian Business Podcast. Today I'm joined by Zara for round 3 of the marketing mini-series. How you going?
Good, Jordan. Good to be back.
Yes, it is. And it's just me and you. Owen's left us. Important phone call, he reckons. So today we're going to run through the difference between paid versus organic advertising. And I guess, Zara, can you explain the differences between paid and organic advertising?
Totally. So organic advertising is something that you don't have to invest money into. So it's something like social media marketing where you can post content on your Instagram or your TikTok profile. People can be organically connecting and engaging with it. They can be, commenting or sending you a DM, vice versa. Ideally, to make sure that you're actively engaging with your community, you're doing that, you're reciprocating that with them as well. So you're kind of creating a really organic relationship. And then, when we're looking at paid advertising, we're talking about things like Google advertising, we're talking about Meta advertising, TikTok advertising, LinkedIn advertising. Obviously, depending on what your business is and what industry you're in, depends on what makes sense. But paid advertising is essentially a platform that you have to invest money into for it to operate for you.
Okay, cool. I'll run through a couple of examples.
Yeah.
And we can play rapid fire. Yes or no? Paid versus organic. So if I pay $100 for a YouTube ad to grow awareness of my fashion bare Jordans, would that be considered paid or organic?
That would be paid.
Okay, cool. Should have changed that.
What is bare?
I don't know. One of Owen's creations. Copyright infringement. I didn't say he could use my name. If I was to write a blog post on 6 ways to run faster and optimize for Google, would that be organic or paid?
So that would be a form of organic marketing.
Of course, also SEO type.
Also SEO, it aligns with that. Yeah, helps essentially for your business and your website to show up better.
Cool.
Yeah.
I send 100 text messages using ActiveCampaign to all of my existing clients in a database, offering a 50% discount on 4 hours of plumbing work. Would that be considered organic or paid?
So that would be organic in the sense that you're not investing money into a platform like Meta or LinkedIn to get your ad out there or to get somebody to see it. Obviously, it's not totally organic in the sense that you have to pay for your subscription to that SMS marketing or email.
There's still a fee involved.
There's still a fee involved. And you have to pay to send those text messages out.
Yep.
But it's not paid in the sense of Google advertising, for example.
Yep. Cool. What are the benefits and some of the drawbacks of paid advertising for small businesses?
It's a really good question. I think the biggest thing that can be potentially a drawback or something that can be really difficult for small businesses is the return on investment that you're going to make. So the platforms can be quite expensive. There can be quite a lot of competition on those platforms. If you're thinking about women's fashion, for example, there's a lot of women's fashion labels out there. A lot of women's fashion labels are running Facebook advertising. So then it can just mean that the competition on that platform and for you to show up. So it just kind of eats away into your profit margins a little bit.
And it can get very expensive very quickly if you don't know what you're doing.
Absolutely. So that's a really good question. So I think thinking about like return on investment is something that's really important. So understanding how much money you would need to spend on a platform in order to make money back, and that comes around looking at your profitability of your products. So what's your operating costs? Have you factored marketing into that cost of operating? And then just knowing that like every dollar that you spend on advertising, essentially, if you haven't factored that into your cost of operations, that kind of ideally that's sitting at like 30% for your business. If you haven't kind of factored that, then it's coming out of your profit margin in that 20% top end as well. So I think the benefits is obviously that you are reaching a huge audience that you don't necessarily have otherwise access to. And that's a huge draw card of Facebook advertising, is that you can get your product out there, you can get it seen, you can really grow the awareness and the recognition of the brand.
Yep.
It's just obviously it can be quite expensive.
Yeah, for sure. And interesting something that you mentioned there is how you took into account all the other expenses of a business.
Yeah.
And one of the metrics that we spoke about in one of the previous episodes was how a lot of agencies just
focus on return on ad spend.
Exactly.
Yeah. Of course.
So it's super important that businesses do what you just mentioned and do take everything into account, because if you're spending $1 and you're making $2, but that $2 is actually costing you money, then you're going backwards for every sale that you're making.
Yeah, 100%. So I think that's why it's profitability. Business owners really, really truly understand their profit margins. When you're looking at, that you've got 100% of your profit of a product cost, 50% is your manufacturing, and that's physically manufacturing the product. That's your shipping. That's all of those. Then we're looking at like cost of operating, and so that's like, do you have subscription software, like your website, like those sorts of things? Do you have wages?
Exactly, it gives you a better picture.
It's a better picture, and then ideally, what your marketing spend and your marketing advertising budget is factored into that cost of your operating as well.
Yeah.
Because you can have a product, but if you're not marketing it, it's not going anywhere. No one's going to see it.
Yeah.
So that cost of operating your business, marketing comes into that.
Yeah, it falls into that bucket.
Absolutely.
Cool. And as a small business, how can you de-risk paid ads?
Good question. I think there's a few ways. Organic is a really good space to start. So I know that we spoke about it might have been episode 2 or episode 1. And that's really thinking about ways that we can connect with our community organically. So whether that be joining Facebook groups, whether that be looking at like online forums, if your business is you as a brand and you're trying to kind of build up your influence as a business owner, then it's looking at, potentially you're in the professional services space, you're looking at like LinkedIn as a platform, and maybe you are, writing a blog on top ways to grow your organic audience, for example. And I can see that you, Jordan, have recently reacted and commented on a post that somebody else published on LinkedIn. So then what I'm doing is I'm sharing my own blog post, and then I'm organically going out, spending that time going and finding, say, 10 people that I want to DM on Instagram. And I'm saying, hey, Jordan, I recently saw that you recently read and commented on Owen's post about growing your audience organically. I've also just written a blog about it. I'd love to know what you think. And sending people to that LinkedIn post. And so then kind of what you're doing with that is, I guess it's looking at, I like to call it's like a busy restaurant analogy. And so the way that we can kind of look at organic content is that empty restaurant versus busy restaurant. And so when you're walking down the street, you want to go out for dinner and you walk past a restaurant that's got no one sitting in the front window, you're not inclined to go in. There's quite a lot of risk involved with you walking in that restaurant. But if you walk past a busy restaurant, there's 10 people sitting in the window and there's a couple of people lining up out the front, instantly that risk has dropped for you. And so when we're looking at organic content and that organic growth, what we're doing, and that example that I just gave about LinkedIn, what we're trying to do is create that same kind of sentiment around content. So it's getting people to react and engage with your content organically, and that can be through sending those DMs. So then when we do amplify that and we put some paid spend behind it, what we're showing people is something that other people have already liked and engaged with. So then as a new customer, I can see that other people have taken the risk before me and read that article and they've gotten something out of it. So I know I'm going to get something out of it as well.
Yeah, cool. I like that. You really are de-risking, seeing what's worked.
Yeah,
down.
Definitely.
Cool. So staying on the topic of organic, how does that exactly work, and what would you consider a key success factor?
Good question. I think if we're thinking about staying in that maybe the social media space right now, because we've done a few examples of that. If we're looking at like our content, so ways that we can be, are we creating content that our audience is engaging with? Is that resonating with people? What is our interaction? What does our hook rate look like? There's a lot of different metrics, and I'm aware there's a lot of jargon that comes in the space as well, like hook rates and hold rates and those kinds of things, particularly when we're talking about video content. How quickly are we engaging with that audience, and are we getting them to stop their scroll? So the hook rate's stopping the scroll, and then are we actually getting them to hold and watch more of that video as well? And what does that look like? And so then essentially looking at like, are we improving those rates? So is our content getting better? Is our hook rate improving? Is our hold rate improving? Are we getting more people across to, whatever platform we're looking at, whether it be TikTok, whether it be Instagram? And then I think using things, like Reels is also a really great place to start. And brand collaborations. So working with other businesses or other people of influence within your space, creating these natural, organic kind of relationships, and they can become brand ambassadors for you as well. And so, that can kind of be a more traditional form of advertising without putting that investment into platforms like Meta, platforms like Google Ads. And then obviously email marketing, which I know we just had a whole episode about. Go back and watch it because it's really great. But email marketing is massive, and it's something that I think every business owner should start. That's kind of one of your core foundations is email marketing.
For sure. And in what scenario should a business prioritize paid ads over organic growth, or vice versa, if we were to flip that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, again, maybe when we're talking about marketing, there's two different things that you can look at. There's two different ways that you can invest as a business owner. You can invest your time and your effort, or you can invest money, And I think it really depends on what resources you have available as a business owner at that point in your business as to where you can look at investing. But I think from a very basic perspective, or very basic kind of level, we can say, well, let's start with our organic. Let's go back to that busy restaurant analogy. Let's create a brand that people are talking about organically, and then let's pour the fuel on top of the fire. Paid advertising is your accelerant. That's your fuel. So we want to start by building our fire. We want to start creating that busy restaurant. And then what we want to do is we want to pump some paid ads behind it, put some ad spend behind it. And then we're pouring the fuel on top of the fire. Yeah,
cool. And just staying with that analogy, I guess, whether you're a restaurant that's been there for a year or 5 years, these are all things that can be implemented.
100%, and I think there's always ways to grow. There's always ways to be doing things better, and being more effective with your advertising efforts.
Yeah, for sure. What are some effective platforms for paid advertising, and how do you know which is the right one for your business?
Such a great question. And it really comes back to looking at the industry that you're in, and, where people are spending their time. Are you a service-based business? Are you a plumber? Are you a wedding photographer? Does it make sense for you to be spending time on Meta, or does it make sense for you to be spending time on Google? And if we're thinking about wedding photography, for example, if you get engaged and you're planning a wedding, you need a photographer.
Yeah.
So it's you don't necessarily need Meta or Facebook as a platform to throw an ad in your face to tell you that you need it, because you kind of need it. So then you're kind of shifting to platforms like Google, which is more of that needs-based search engine.
Yeah.
So then maybe what we're doing is we're going, okay, well, we know that we're kind of in the wedding photography business. We know that people are going to be searching for wedding photographers in Northeast Victoria. So we're going to advertise on Google to make sure that then when people are searching for that, we're going to be appearing at the top. But maybe then we're looking at a fashion-based business, or we're a new skincare brand. What works for skincare is showing people that it works. And the best way to show people that works is through creative content. So that's looking at video content. It's, kind of before and afters. It's testimonials. It's people showing you how to use the product and how it works and what that skin transformation can look like. Best way to do that is through video. The best way to show that is through platforms like TikTok, Instagram, Meta. So, then we're looking at potentially, maybe you're a plumber and you're trying to build up, letterbox drops is something that I have a client that we're working with at the moment that that's part of his strategy, is that they're looking at letterbox drops. And, again, it's not necessarily a close rate thing, but maybe it's more of an awareness thing. So I think there's lots of different options. I think, billboards is something that we still see around. And again, it's not necessarily a revenue-based channel. It's an awareness-based channel.
Yeah.
But then brand recognition is still a thing, and it helps to build brand equity.
Yeah.
And so it all kind of, I guess they all sort of play into it, right? It's kind of all of these different strategies that bleed into one.
Also, would you consider Meta and TikTok, would they sit in the same bracket, or are they different? Would you use one as opposed to the other for different things, or?
Different. And they have different strategies for both as well. And there's different demographics and different audiences on both of them. So they definitely, you can't kind of lump a Facebook strategy onto TikTok.
Right.
And vice versa. You kind of want to make sure that you're doing it as per what's working on that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Good to know. Did not know that. How can a business improve its organic reach? What are some different methods?
Great question. Again, TikTok's a really great space. There's trending audio, there's trending content, there's trending styles, trending videos, that if you as a business can align to those things, then it can do really great things. It can really help to boost your brand awareness. Looking at, if we're thinking about Instagram, then maybe we're thinking about Reels. We're thinking about collaborations. How can we be collaborating with influencers, or how can we be collaborating with other brands? Maybe we're doing a social giveaway and I sell footwear, and I'm doing a collaboration with a clothing label or socks, or maybe I'm working with another accessories. Maybe there's another handbag company that I really like. And so we're doing like a leather-based giveaway. And so we're giving away a leather handbag, leather shoes, and a leather wallet. And so it's, using other brands' equity, what they've built over however long that they've been in business for. You're kind of leveraging them and kind of where they're at within their business. And then I guess thinking about ways that we can kind of reach people. And it's one of the things that's really trending at the moment, UGC, which is user-generated content, versus EGC, which is employee-generated content. And so they are quite different. And I guess the benefit of EGC, employee-generated content, is that people want to see who's behind a brand. It's kind of that founder story on steroids. People want to know more about the business owners or the businesses that they're buying from. And this style of content is a really great way of building that relationship with your customers. And going back to that personalization that comes from email marketing, that's a way that you can kind of help build those organic relationships in the content space.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for that stuff.
Yeah, me too.
Less of the more polished videos, and it's just day in the life.
Well, no one likes to be sold to, right? Yeah. No one likes to have something thrown in their face. So a car salesman doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
So it's a really organic way of building those relationships and building trust that then organically results in a sale.
100%. I find myself watching those videos for so much longer than I should be. Cool. So what role does content play in enhancing a business's organic visibility?
I think going back to that, leveraging trends and leveraging, audio and those things that are working, in the sense that you're building trust, but also relevancy. If you as a business can really jump onto a current trend or a current audio or, trending sound, then you're showing your customer base that you're relevant in the space right now. You're aware, you're present on the platform, you're engaging with them, you're showing them content that they like, and you're essentially becoming familiar. If you're using trending audio, trending style videos, you're falling into a familiar space for customers, which again helps to build trust. Yeah,
for sure. And how much should a business budget for paid advertising?
Great question. And it really, really depends on your profit margins again, but also the lifetime value of your customers. Again, if you're a subscription-based pet food company, it might cost you a little bit more to get someone to initially sign up to your subscription-based product. Maybe the product costs $60 a month for my dog food. Maybe that initial cost per sign up or that cost per acquisition for the business owner might be $50, in which case they're probably not making money on the first sign up. But then if someone stays on the subscription for 6 months, again, we're kind of timesing what that lifetime value of that customer is. So I think it really depends on your industry, your product, how much your product costs. If you're selling luxury accommodation or luxury houses, obviously the investment and the risk for the consumer is so much more. So you would assume that you would have to invest some more money behind that as well. So I think it's looking, again, all of those things need to come into consideration. Yeah,
cool, for sure. So on that note, what metrics should businesses track to assess the performance of an ad or other organic strategies?
Good question. Good question. And I think particularly, we were talking about agencies the other day as well. When we're looking at paid, again, there's a lot of jargon out there. There's a lot of things that we can look at. Does depend sometimes on the platforms that you're looking at, but, hook rate, hold rate, those sorts of things helps you to understand if your content's engaging. So all of the time and effort that you're putting into content creation, is it working?
Yeah.
Do people want to see and hear more of what you're creating? And if you're not looking at, click-through rate is another one that you can have a look at. And it essentially is just all of that effort that you're putting into creating that content, whether it be yourself, whether it be team members, whether you're working with influencers. Is it translating? Are people visiting, getting to that website or that landing page or whatever that destination is that translating? And then obviously looking at, cost per acquisition or CPA. Super important because that helps you determine profit margins as a business.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess it's so much more important, especially if you're investing so much money with an ads agency or a video production crew, whatever it may be. So important that you know what's going on and is it actually working? Yeah, it looks great, but is the audience receptive to it?
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting. I've worked with a few different businesses, particularly in the fashion space in the past, where they have gone out and invested a $10,000 content shoot, which is a massive, massive investment for a small business.
Yeah.
$10,000 on a content shoot for one model to then revamp their entire website and obviously they've reshot their entire collection with this model, to then find out that their target demographic, or the demographic that's buying, is in their 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
And the model's in her 30s.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking about like what someone in their 50s and 60s is wanting out of clothing, it's so different from what someone wants when they're in their 30s.
Yeah.
And so some of the things that we want to be calling out, some of the figures that we want to be showcasing, some of the, pain points and some of the benefits of the product, they're just so different, and you can't convey them if you're at a very basic level, if your model's not right.
Yeah, 100%. And the cost to create that is so expensive.
So expensive. And then to find that out as a business after you've invested 10 grand in a content shoot, that the content's not resonating and your audience is in their 50s, then you have to, go back and you have to try and find content or create content that's actually going to resonate with the audience that's buying from you, because people want to see what that product's going to look like on them.
Exactly.
It's so important. And then I think going back to your question at the start was like organic and ways that you can kind of track that. And I think like engagement rates, do you have a referral system set up with your email marketing? There's so many things out there like give 20, get 20.
Yeah.
Give $20 to your friend if they buy and we'll give you $20.
Yeah.
So again, it's kind of that digital word of mouth, and increasing your footprint in the digital space. Follower growth. Is your Instagram growing? Is your email database growing?
So many things to track.
So
many metrics.
I know, there's so many metrics. There is.
Yeah. But it's good. It's good to have an understanding, at least a baseline understanding of everything. So
Totally.
when you do sit with an agency or whoever you use, you can have a two-way conversation.
So important.
Yeah. What I found with clients that I've spoken to, or people that have had experiences with agencies, it's a one-way street.
Yeah.
And they throw these metrics and things, and that business owners, we just don't know sometimes.
Yeah. And I think it's hard because when you do live in agency land, that is the way that you speak, like on a daily basis. That's the way that you're communicating with your team. They're the metrics that you're talking about. Yep. So it's just such a natural way of conversing with people that then kind of when you jump into that client conversation, it's just part of your general vocabulary. And that's the way that you're communicating the results. But I think, it's so important to remember, if you do work in an agency, that sometimes you do have to scale it back, and you do have to do that extra education and explanation point to help business owners understand, because it's so important for business owners to understand. But also as someone that works in an agency, you want to have those ongoing relationships that they can be really reciprocal, and as a business owner, you're more likely to collaborate if you know what you're collaborating on.
Yeah, exactly. And you'll get better results.
100%.
If you can go back and forth and dig deeper on what this stuff actually means, you'll get better results from the agency.
100%.
And not just ROAS, bang, done, next. Yeah. So it's super important to know these little acronyms and what they mean and what you should be looking at.
Yeah.
So can you share any case studies where a blend of both strategies have worked well together, both paid and organic?
Yeah, totally.
More acronyms?
Yeah, of course. There's a really fantastic business, and I won't name them, but a really incredible business that has done so many great things, hit $1 million in their first year of operating.
Nice.
And because they invested, they put so much time and energy. And again, go back to that. You can either invest time and effort, or you can invest money. They invested both.
Yep.
And obviously really went hard on that organic strategy. So, they had brand ambassadors. We did website surveys. So it was, we had a survey on the website that we hosted through, it was Jotform or something like that. And so it was just to try and help customers figure out what product they needed based on, what they were experiencing at that time. And then it kind of led them to a product at the end that was based on their responses.
Yep.
They created like YouTube videos, and they did traditional kind of campaigns through billboards on the sides of roads.
Yeah, right.
They did PR. They worked with influencers, but then we also did paid advertising. We did Google advertising. We did Meta advertising. They dived into TikTok when that came out. And so I guess and they just blew up. They're such a successful business. Not to mention they're an incredible business doing incredible things like globally, and for women and people that identify as women, but also for like charities and organizations. They're really focused on giving back. So there is such a space for focusing on a blend of organic and paid, and even traditional in that matter, magazines.
Yeah.
There's definitely, obviously it's a capacity thing.
Yeah. So on all of those different things that you've mentioned,
yeah,
is this all done in that strategy session? Like, how would you map out all of those examples of a lot of the things that we've been speaking about. How does that come to fruition?
Yeah, so strategy is a great place.
Yeah.
So having that, again, I think the reason this business did so well was because they had a really solid strategy in place. It wasn't just kind of
try this, try that.
Try that. Yeah, it was really focused on like, okay, this is what our goal is. This is what we want to hit this year. This is what we want to hit this quarter. This is the number of products that we want to sell. What do we need to do? What can you do to sell your part? What can I do to sell my part? How can we work together?
Yep.
I'll be responsible for selling. Obviously, again, it's really hard to forecast, but you can say, okay, well, I want to sell 400 units, through paid kind of means. Okay, well, how's that going to work? Okay, well, if I want to, we do split tests. We look at SMS, we look at paid, we look at Google. We kind of really identify what platforms we're seeing success from. And then if we're constantly using our data and constantly analyzing, we can say, okay, well, at the moment, Google's killing it for us.
Yep.
And it's doing really, really well. Okay, let's kind of reduce the spend that we've got on Facebook, for example, and let's really dive it into Google. Let's, TikTok's killing it at the moment.
Yep.
Let's really like double down on our TikTok strategy. And then maybe that can help lift the number of units that we're trying to sell.
And that really goes to show you how important a good strategy is and having a good relationship with the agency that's doing it. Because if you're meeting frequently, it gives you that opportunity to pivot if it does come up. So it's super important that those communication lines are open with the agency or whoever you're using to do all your marketing work. Cool. That was a good episode. Paid versus organic. I like that. I thought I had a really good understanding of how it all works, but I don't know about that anymore. So no, thanks for that, Zara. And if people want to get in contact with you, there's a link in the show notes for a free discovery or disco call.
Yep, disco call.
Yep, I like it. I'm running with disco call. So feel free to fill out the form, or we'll have a Calendly link perhaps.
Yep.
And organise a free discovery session with Zara.
Yeah.
Cool.
Please do. Would love to.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Zara. That was great.
Thanks, Jordan.
Cheers.
Thanks for watching this video on the Rask Network. While you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can get videos each and every day on business, finance, investing, and so much more.